Hey, what's up, everyone? I am your host, Sethee.
I am stylist Rashi Bindra.
Elevated Grapes is a digital media hub that includes a talk show, event correspondence, and digital hosting for partner projects.
The talk show which you are listening to or watching, depending what you're doing, covers topics in fashion, business, and lifestyle.
We regularly have incredible guests that share their stories, their experiences, and tips on the above topics.
And when we don't, you get to hear how we talk to each other off air.
So subscribe to your favorite streaming site, YouTube, and Instagram for behind the scenes and additional visual content.
Let's jump right into the show. Welcome to Elevated Grapes.
This is the Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethee.
And
stylist, Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we?
All right, folks, let's dive right into it by introducing our guest, Ravi Narine, who works in fashion and in lifestyle space, and he's also the owner of 1011 Consulting Group. Ravi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me today.
So we're really excited to hear your story. I mean, Rashi and I have gotten a number of opportunities to speak with you and understand sort of your role in the fashion industry. But for the benefit of our listeners, talk to us a little bit about yourself, your space in the industry, and what sort of things you do to work within the industry.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say for the past 5 years, I've been heavily involved in the luxury fashion and lifestyle space in various capacities. So anywhere from brand management, partner management, negotiations, event planning, curating exclusive events and executing them. And then, even some of the non-glamorous side of things where some of the elements like you don't really see, like copywriting, editing, contracts, and things like that, are all things that I kind of look after. And I would say very recently also, I just recently launched my own consulting company, as you had mentioned, 1011 Consulting Group, and that has a very strong focus in the luxury lifestyle space.
So Rashi, I'm going to jump in really quickly here because you had a really important point that I think a lot of people forget about this industry is the business side of the industry. It's there's a lot of glitz and glamour involved in the fashion world, and that's usually what most people see on your Instagrams and your television shows and that sort of thing. But the contract, the copyright, like the nitty gritty of what goes behind the scenes. Talk to us a little bit about the work you've done there.
I think, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people, when you just look at kind of, you see the highlights, right? So you see the fun part, you see like to your point, you see more like the glamorous side of things. But
yes,
I think what a lot of people don't see, like you don't see all the work that goes on in the background, months and months of work to kind of get to that point. So again, it's there's definitely a lot of legwork, to get something in market. But that's I would say that's just as important as the execution piece that people kind of tend to gravitate towards.
So why did you choose luxury fashion though? I mean, hearing from your story, like you are involved in so many moving parts in bringing that product to life or that service to life. But why was it luxury? Like what drew you to that?
I think from a very young age, for whatever reason, I always had an appreciation for, quote unquote, the finer things. I think growing up, especially as a teenager, I was always into fashion, putting myself together. And I think from there, as I got older, it just got more and more refined. So once I got to university, it was more, how can I curate your lifestyle in this space? So it's like, but that's how it kind of started. And then over the years, it just kind of evolved until I was able to kind of find my niche in terms of what I'm doing now.
So is that where 1011 Group comes in, Consulting Group comes in? Is that where the direction of 1011 Consulting Group is?
Yes, so 1011 Consulting Group, as I mentioned, there's a strong focus in luxury lifestyle space, and that can include various different elements. So it could, that includes, consulting in the fashion space, consulting in, it could be luxury travel, it could be luxury dining. Like there's quite a few elements under the umbrella, where I can come in and add some value to the partner that I'm working with.
It sounds a little bit almost like concierge service.
I mean, I think it has a little bit of that element to it. It's more so, I would say, if a potential client comes to me and kind of tells me what they're looking for, I think just given my experience and where I am in the industry, I think I'm able to really come in and add some value to whoever I'm working with.
So one of the things you mentioned is luxury travel and luxury dining. And I know like we hear luxury fashion quite a bit. We do not really hear, or I think most people can't really pinpoint the difference between traveling to a beautiful destination and luxury traveling, eating at a fine restaurant and luxury dining. So why don't you maybe expand a little bit on that for us, and then we can all just keep dreaming of that life.
Yeah, I mean, I think with it, it's more about the overall experience, right? So, like luxury dining, like I think that depending on the person, that term can have a lot of different meanings to many different people. Luxury dining to one person might be going to a nice restaurant, having a nice meal, whereas to someone else, they want to go to the nice restaurant, but they need to have a private room, private chef, and different elements, right? So it really depends on who it is. I think that there's various different elements that we can add to certain things to kind of cater to different people's needs and wants. And when you get to the travel piece of it, I think with luxury travel, again, like that can really have various different meanings to a lot of different people. Some people may not want to fly commercial. They want to fly on a charter aircraft, going to a destination that they're headed to.
Like Buffalo?
Pardon me?
Like Buffalo?
Yeah, maybe a little further south.
So talk to us a little bit about the extension of so when you said your come up was you're very heavily into the fashion world, putting yourself together, working in the space on the luxury fashion side. So talk to us about how you feel and why you feel the work you're doing now is an extension of that initial sort of introduction or that initial work in the space.
I mean, I think with regards to that, like from where it started to kind of what I'm doing right now, I think the way that relates is it allows me to really curate, whether it's a vision that a brand comes to me with that they want to execute, or on the client side of things, if a client comes to me and they're looking for a certain type of experience, I'm able to curate that experience for them. So whether it's it could be a party, it could be a brand launch for a product, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's various different things that I can do on the brand side, on the client side, to really curate their lifestyle and what it is that they're really trying to accomplish with that.
I really like that, the whole idea of you curating their lifestyle and their experience. It's almost kind of like expanding to more, because there is so much more available, and there's so much more we can experience, but a lot of people do feel boxed in at times. So I love the idea that your focus is to curate that lifestyle and experience for them. Yes, it does go with what it defines for one person. Like one person's luxury travel is just flying business class, and one person is having the private jets and plane, and hint, that's me right here. But I do really, really like that. And so what I find fascinating about your story is you had an idea for this, since you were young. Like you've always been drawn to the finer things of life, and I love that honesty. As you were like growing and like figuring stuff out, and you got into college and university, what made so if someone had to ask you, how did you get into the space? What would you say was your first step into saying oh, I did this to be able to get to this point, type of thing?
That's a great question. I think the main thing I would say is just really networking as much as you can. Putting yourself out there, trying to meet other people who might be in the industry already doing things that you would like to be doing as well. I think that's the key thing. Like when I was when I was coming up, there really wasn't that many avenues or venues to kind of get into this space specifically, right? So it's a very niche space, and obviously back then, it wasn't something where you can't go to school and say, hey, I want to get into the luxury lifestyle. Like there's you can go to school and learn to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. Like there's different paths to follow for each of those. But to get into this space, like there's not necessarily a set path. So what's worked for me really well is it's just been networking, having really, really great mentors, having really great connections in the industry that's been able to provide me guidance. I think that would be the main piece of advice I would give to anyone trying to get into the industry.
So luxury as a concept, maybe a little bit challenging in the current situation and current challenges that we're facing. How do you feel about that space right now, given, what's going on in the world and the pandemic we're facing, the economic challenges we're facing? How do you feel about the world of luxury and how that plays its role right now?
I think right now it's still a little bit too early to tell. I think, like a lot of the brands are still some of them are still recovering from last year and obviously going into this year. I think a lot of the luxury brands are even more so depending on China versus, let's say, Europe or North America to kind of bounce back. And I think, just overall, if you look at the marketplace, just like the sale of luxury apparel, I would say overall is down. But luxury handbags, jewelry, home furnishings, and art, those sales are actually up. So what we're seeing is really a switch to just a different area or a different focus, with still within luxury, but just to actually get like a different product set. So I think, it'll be interesting because I think even like with the luxury shopping experience, especially on the apparel side, a lot of it is really that in-person experience is really key. Like the brick and mortar stores are so important to get that type of one-on-one experience that level of clientele expects. So I think what some of these brands have been doing, and I think will continue to do, is really grow the e-commerce side of things, because I think that's going to be super key, in order to be successful moving forward.
One of the conversations you and I were having offline was, and this ties into the whole luxury sector and brands, is what we could do virtually, right? There's so much we can do virtually to kind of still curate that experience that most people have gotten so used to going into a store. And like you said, we are moving into a very e-commerce world, especially with what's been happening, since like last year and even now. So do you feel, and again, this is just from what we all know with what's happening and being in this industry, do you feel that there is a way to virtually give that luxury experience that most people would want when they, walk into a luxury branded store? Like a Chanel, for example. Do you think we can still give that Chanel customers, experience that they get when they walk into Chanel and have that online?
I think you can, to a certain extent. I know a lot of the brands, they are doing, like personalized virtual appointments with their clients. So I definitely think you can do it to a certain extent. I think having, like a one-to-one kind of salesperson-client relationship, and having that person available for the client, whenever they need, pretty much. I think that's like those elements. I think you can still bring it to an extent, but there are other pieces that I think you can't really replicate, like in the virtual space. So for example, like if you go into a store, you're not going to be you're taken to a private room. You're served champagne. You might have some hors d'oeuvres, some desserts, and things like that. And I think all of those elements are part of the experience. So, obviously, doing it virtually, you're not necessarily able to do that. But I think for maybe your top clients, you can ship them some champagne and chocolates. And,
Just thinking that.
so,
Just thinking that.
yeah, I think it really depends on what the investment would be, or the type of investment certain brands are willing to make to really maintain that level of service that their clients have come to expect.
Fair enough. So we're chatting with Ravi Narine. We're going to take a quick break here on Elevated Grapes, go to a quick message and come right back. Hey guys, it's your host Sethee. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Elevated Grapes. Cheers and let's continue the show. So we're having a conversation with Ravi Narine of 1011 Consulting Group. So Ravi, we were talking a little bit about the luxury space currently and what's going on in the luxury space. 1011 Consulting Group was born during the pandemic. Well, the idea wasn't, but it's actually formulated during the pandemic. So talk to us about how you ended up launching a consulting company targeted towards a luxury brand and the luxury sector, and why you chose this specific moment to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think just given the current climate with everything going on, over almost the past year now, it would have been really easy, I think, for a lot of people just to kind of throw your hands up and, say there's nothing I can do, especially when the majority of what I do involves live experiences. But I think especially in the luxury space, many brands they're really continuing to look for ways to adapt and still be successful. And I felt with my skill set and the portfolio that I bring to the table, I would be able to add value there. I mean, even more so during this time, because I think a lot of brands or a lot of brands, clients, where they've had an established, way of doing things. And I think obviously everything going on in the world right now, it's forced a lot of people to kind of think outside the box and really get a little more creative and do things that they may not normally have done previously. So I thought just kind of sitting back and looking at everything, I thought this would have been just the perfect time just to kind of jump in and just really get things going on that side.
I really liked how you said that you could have just put your hands up in the air and like, okay, it's COVID, whatever, I can't deal with like the luxury sector, I won't have any clients, because I've heard so many, businesses saying that, and so many people saying, oh, I wanted to do this, but because it's COVID, I don't think I can do it anymore. So I'm just going to just wait till it's all done, versus you took that inspired action to be like, you know what? Yes, it's COVID, it's pandemic, but I am targeting a very niche market. It is a luxury sector, which again, people might be like luxury during the pandemic. We're all sitting at home, but there is that market, right? There is those people who, despite a pandemic, they still live that luxurious life, or they like the finer things in life, or their quality of their products has not decreased just because we're in a lockdown. So, and then for you to take the risk and launch right now, it says a lot about you, not only as a person, but I would say that it shows a lot about you as an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And I just want you to maybe touch on, how do you see that as growth for what you want to do, like at some point, or moving forward?
I mean, I think kind of starting this company at this particular time, this is really setting the foundation for me to build on. So, whether it's 6 months from now, whether it's a year from now, when things, get back to some sense of normalcy, I think at that point, I would have built enough over that time period. So when we do get back to some sense of normalcy, it's just, I think it'll just be times 10 at that point. Because that stuff is pretty easy in terms of execution and things like that. So it would just be a matter of plugging that in and just going with what I've already built thus far.
So it's almost like like they say, you're laying the groundwork when most people are running for the hill. You're doing it at a time when I guess for you in your space also, the competition is not going to be as much, even if it's being niche, because a lot of people are not actively pursuing that market right now.
No, that's exactly it. And I think, I think with any type of entrepreneurial endeavor, you just have to have just an unwavering belief just in yourself, like almost irrational belief in yourself, because I'm sure, just kind of, you look at whether it's people losing their jobs, companies going out of business, different. You're like, am I doing the right thing at this point? Like, is this the right decision? But I think you just have to have that belief in yourself. Obviously, do your homework and just really go for it.
So talk to us a little bit about that, like the scope and the mindset. You talked a little bit about mentors before. So speak to us about what role that plays into the mindset that you have going into this right now.
I would say I've been very, very fortunate over the course of my career to work with fantastic people. So some really great individuals that have helped me tremendously, especially in this industry. And I think the advice, the conversations and things like that have been invaluable to me. And what I've done, I've been able to kind of take, or I should say, what I try to do. Everyone that I work with, everyone that I especially like from a mentor level, I really try to learn different things. Everyone has brings different skill sets and different strengths to the table. And I really just try to learn from everyone that I interact with. And I think, just all of those interactions collectively have just, it's helped me tremendously in my career to kind of get to this point.
Mm-hmm. So what we were touching a little bit earlier on, just sort of the luxury space in the current market, the luxury space with the pandemic. So what are you seeing? Because you're sort of firsthand involved in this world and dealing with brands quite often. What kind of things are you seeing brands do to create that luxury experience that we were referring to earlier in this current environment, seeing that we can't necessarily go do the brick and mortar and touch and feel experience, seeing that a lot of businesses are moving to e-commerce or online or curbside pickup, or in a lot of cases, not even able to operate because it's not considered quote unquote an essential service. So those brands that are still out there trying to give that luxury experience to their consumer, what sort of things are you seeing them do to provide that experience?
I see a lot of brands doing I think they're utilizing their social channels a lot more during this time. Whether it's with different collaborations that they're dropping. Some brands have been doing Instagram live concerts just as a way to keep their clientele base engaged with them, and they're not really pushing, hey, come shop with us, but it's more like, hey, look at what we're doing. So your eyes are still focused on that particular brand, right? So you're still keeping that engagement with your clients, and just really boosting the e-commerce services. So what's offered on the site, I think I touched on it earlier. They're offering virtual appointments, virtual consultations, things like that. And just doing really, really curated experiences in that virtual space where you're into, you might be they're giving really like a one-to-one interaction. It could be people higher ups at the brands that you wouldn't necessarily have access to.
Yes.
And I think that's something that really, really resonates with with the client base.
I think that same point also goes forward with staffing in the company. You'll find a lot of companies here, you get the upper level executives, CEOs spending more times virtually, even if it is virtual, with their employees over weekly calls, bi-weekly calls. And so that same extension of being present and available for their employees, I think, is also extending over to their consumer, right? It's not just your frontline necessarily sales rep who's been managing the relationship. There may be a larger opportunity to get a VP or a regional manager or even a CEO, depending on the size of the company, to spend some time with that customer one-on-one, because it's virtual and it's easier for them to do.
That's exactly it. And you want to keep those touch points with your customer. You want to keep that going. And I think it's a really fine balance. You don't want it to come across as, hey, we're still trying to sell you things. Yes. With everything that's going on, you really have to have the right approach, when you're doing things like
that. I did have a question, and then my wonderful host kind of interrupted, and I lost the question.
We're gonna sit here in silence while that.
No. Oh yes, I thought it came back to me. Guys, this happens quite a bit for those who've been following our podcast for a long time. So So there is the luxury space here in Canada, here in like North America. But how do you feel the whole shop local movement that's happening in like every city? How do you feel that is tying into this luxury market? Because shop local may not necessarily translate to, have a luxury experience. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's actually been one of the positives of this, because a lot of luxury clients tend to buy luxury items when they're traveling, when they're away, whether it's for business, whether it's for personal reasons. I think a lot of luxury shopping take place like when these clients are traveling. I've spoken to a lot of people in the city, and some of them have said, you know what, I've never actually been to the local, whatever boutique, luxury boutique. And I think they're like, I went in there for the first time last weekend, or I didn't realize that it had such a nice location. So I think it's good in the sense that it's getting luxury clients within the city to be more familiar with the boutiques and what's available with it, like in the city, and get that type of local engagement that way. So I think it's been really positive in that sense.
So if you were to scale that into sort of the global scale on luxury and the market, do you feel that, there's a bit of that regional focus and getting to know your local players, but how is that impacting the global market, global luxury market?
I think it's not going to have that big of an impact in terms of like when things get back to normal. I think what it'll do, like it'll just add to it. Because when things when let's say when we are allowed to travel again and kind of get back to that normalcy, those clients are still going to be shopping at luxury boutiques when they're away, but now they're also going to be doing it when they're within the city too. So I think it's just a plus, and it'll just continue to help it.
Absolutely. No, I actually, that's a very, very valid point. Like, I think once they have a brand association with their local shops and their local boutiques, it's just only going to enhance it when they're gone. Because now it's like, hey, before I plan, I could buy it when I'm out in Italy, but I could also buy it here and have something for the plane too while I'm traveling. So it makes that extra little push for the local guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're also, and it's also allowing the local boutiques to really build that one-on-one personal relationship with clients as well too. And so I think that really goes a long way, because if I'm a client and I'm like, oh, let me call up this this salesperson at this particular boutique, I know they can get me this relatively quickly. Like, once you have that type of one-on-one relationship, I think like you're more likely to engage with the brand that way.
Absolutely. So we're chatting with Ravi Narine of 1011 Consulting Group. We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, this is stylist Rashi Bindra. Do not forget to catch us on Rukus Avenue. Also, you can hear us on the Dash Radio app every Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I get to do the intros, or I get to lead us back. I get very excited because I usually am not allowed to do this, and I think this is why. But welcome back, guys. We are talking with Ravi Narine from 1011 Consulting Group. And Ravi, before we went on break, we were chatting about all the positive that we're seeing that's coming out of this, that's coming out of the pandemic, and it's having a compounding effect for the long-term luxury market. We were talking about client relations, how we can build that one-on-one, customer service, how even locally you can find different brands in the luxury sector that most people do not realize existed. So what else do you feel is going to actually be positive? Because people sometimes tend to forget that, and we just focus a bit on the short-term negative effects of the pandemic.
No, I mean, that's a great question, and I think once we kind of get on the other side of this, like I said, I think the key piece is clients within the city are going to have more. I feel are going to be more engaged with the local luxury market specifically, and I think that will just help to kind of further enhance and further grow just the industry overall. I mean, Toronto is such a key city in terms of like with regards to luxury specifically. I don't think we've probably fully tapped like the full potential that we have within the city. But I think just getting on the other side of this, like everyone will be at a point from the client side, but also on the brand side of things too, enabled from a perspective of being able to offer different types of experiences and offer, they can get back to the live experiences, but you can still have some elements of the virtual pieces that may carry over, where it just adds to the services that these brands will be able to offer that moment.
I want to talk about that a little bit. You mentioned Toronto is really sort of it's not reached its peak. It's a portion of it. It's an untapped market per se. Where do we compare to some of the other bigger geographical locations, cities, and brands, from your perspective?
I mean, I think we're on like in terms of having the potential to be at the same level of some of the other major cities in the U.S. As well as Europe and things like that. Like I said, like I think we have all the potential to do that. I think what tends to hold us back sometimes is that when you think of luxury fashion, that's not necessarily built into the fabric of Canada as a whole. So, whereas let's say a city like Paris, fashion is really built into the identity and to the culture of what that city is, right? So I think that's where we're kind of lacking a little bit. But in terms of having a world-class city, in terms of having venues, having the brands, and just having a diverse group of people and the right clientele, I mean, I think where it's like Toronto as a city is just as has the potential to be just as strong as some of these other markets.
I liked how you said the word identity, because it's true. When we think of, Paris, right away, fashion comes into mind. If you think about New York, it's a very cosmopolitan in the sense, but it's very business, very like you can make it over there. Like those are the identities that are attached to these cities. What and this is just, me being me and being curious. What do you feel the identity of Toronto? Like what's our identity as a city, according to you?
That's a good question. Wow, I think you actually have me a little stumped on that one. I think the identity is, I think Toronto is just and this is just based from people that I know that have visited the city. It's you guys have a very nice city. It's very clean. Everyone's very polite. I never hear anything in terms of like fashion related or anything to that. I think Toronto's known for great restaurants. That's something else that comes up, and a great harborfront and downtown area by the lake. So I think that those are some of the things that kind of come to mind when I speak to visitors.
Yeah, and this is why we should have martinis in our podcast, because we can talk better about this.
I thought Ravi at that point was going to be like, and thank you for interviewing me. My name is Ravi Narine. I'm out. No, but you're 100% right about that. Like I think the fashion identity, the luxury fashion identity of Toronto is still in the works, is being molded. There's definitely something there. If you do have a foot in the door with some of the fashion groups within Toronto, it's very visual and visibly available to see. And outside of that, unless you're doing the research, I mean, you'll find it, but it's not as at the forefront as you would find in some of the other cities you mentioned.
Yeah.
For sure. So Ravi, let our listeners know where they can find you online. Where do they find 1011 Consulting Group? Where do they find you? And what's up next in your plate for 1011 and yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so you guys can follow me. It's at Ravi Narine, just all one word. And that page is specific to everything that I do, lifestyle related. And then in terms of next steps, Honestly just been looking ahead to spring and summer, and there are some collaborations that I'm currently working on. Can't necessarily share what they are just yet, but yeah, I think like we have some really cool partnerships that's coming up, and I think it'll be things that'll do really well in the market.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for spending the time with us. And for those that are listening, when you start seeing some of those collaborations, partnerships pop up, you know where you heard it first. Right
Exactly.
here. On Elevated
Always.
You can reference back to this conversation to remember what Ravi was talking about. But Ravi, thanks so much for spending the time and sharing your insight into the world of luxury fashion and luxury branding. It's a world I know is very passionate to you. So thanks for taking the time to share that with us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is fun. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Of course. Thank you guys. Yes. And until next time.
Absolutely. This is Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethee. And that one is
Stylist Rashi Bindra.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Hey, guys. Thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind-the-scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red, button thingy that's over there and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool, fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I am your host, Sethee.
I am Stylist Rashi Bindra.
Elevated Grapes is a digital media hub that includes a talk show, event correspondence, and digital hosting for partner projects.
The talk show which you are listening to or watching, depending what you're doing, covers topics in fashion, business, and lifestyle.
We regularly have incredible guests that share their stories, their experiences, and tips on the above topics.
And when we don't, you get to hear how we talk to each other off air.
So subscribe to your favorite streaming site, YouTube, and Instagram for behind the scenes and additional visual content.
Let's jump right into the show. Welcome to Elevated Grapes.